Nebuchadnezzar was one of the most powerful figures in the ancient Near East.
For many years of generations in the past, historians and scientists have been trying to detect secret messages which are concealed in texts of manuscripts. But what if there was a chapter of the Bible missing since the time of Christ that contained information so frightening that it would turn the strongest atheist into a believer? The identity of the author of this little-known text is the subject of much speculation, but their knowledge is believed to impact the experience of existence. Some say it was wiped clean, buried deep so as not to frighten humanity with their sinister revelations. But now, as whispers of its rediscovery spread, one can't help but wonder what prodigal knowledge is hidden by the lapse of those emaciated and almost effaced alphabets? And why was it kept secret? Was it kept hidden from the world for so long? Nebuchadnezzar was the king of the ancient neuronal Babylon that ruled in the period from 605/604 to 562 BC, famous due to the victorious campaigns and the taking and the sacking of Jerusalem that carried with it the removal of the Jews. His rule was characterized by major construction initiatives, such as the Hanging Gardens and an authoritarian bureaucracy. Thus, the ambitious Avalon king Nebuchadnezzar wanted to gather more territories and resources to show his people and other nations how powerful he is. But he was rather prideful and arrogant in his ways, and succumbed to his fate, the biblical story narrates. In his reign, and over all elites and commoners, chiefs and elders, men and women, boys and girls, Nebuchadnezzar expected collected obedience and prostration at his feet. Established a huge empire extending over the territories of Assyria and Egypt, gaining the dominance in world. However, this triumph and authority led to his arrogance and idleness, which altered his processor's realistic perception. Of all the campaigns that Nebuchadnezzar launched, his attack on Jerusalem may be particularly noted. Instead of leveling it to the ground, he preferred to put compromising rulers on the throne and suppress any signs of rebellion. Although he stirred the kings of Judah to produce unrest, through the power of Babylon's military the people never rebelled. When the royal cords of Judah became exhausted, 2 Kings 24 verses 1 to 17, the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar put a young man called Zedekiah on the throne to ensure that he remained in control of Jerusalem. But the reign of Zedekiah was evil because he did not listen to the prophets, especially Jeremiah. He tolerated idolatry. Thus, Jeremiah strenuously prohibiting Zedekiah to rebel against Babylon foretold that no matter who will become the leader of the forces, the result would be the same. The kingdom will be destroyed by Chaldeans. When Zedekiah ignored these warnings and rebelled, Nebuchadnezzar laid siege to Jerusalem, as recounted in 2 Kings, 2 Chronicles, and Jeremiah. The siege led to famine, and eventually Zedekiah was captured. His sons were killed before his eyes, and he was blinded and taken to Babylon. The Babylonians then destroyed Solomon's temple, the most sacred site in Jerusalem, and plundered its treasures. This destruction marked sin in Israel and its people. It was a sign of the broken covenant between God and his nation Israel. The books of Kings and Chronicles also relate how the Babylonians stripped the temple of anything of worth, including objects used for services. Consequently, the glorious temple collapsed to a heap of debris. Psalm 137 focuses with the mood of the Jews who had to sing the songs of the heathen for want of their beloved Jerusalem. Thus, the physical destruction of the temple, along with the exile, marked a change in the development of Jewish religion. Babylon became an evidence to the Jews that their relations with God were not dependent on a special territory or temple, but he was omnipresent. Latter knowledge enabled them to continue believing in the strange land. Nebuchadnezzar, anointed by the Lord to repay the sin of the rebellious people of Judah, ordered that all people bow down to this statue or else be thrown into the blazing furnace. Taking such a stand, Nebuchadnezzar flew in a rage and ordered Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to be thrown in the furnace, which was made hotter than before, 7 times more. But instead of dying, 3 men remained unscathed, and a 4th figure that looked like an angel joined them in the fire. Realizing that the God was among them, Nebuchadnezzar demanded that somebody step out from among them, to which 7 guys stepped forward and they came out without a single burn on them and no sign of smoke. This event led Nebuchadnezzar to glorify the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, acknowledging their unwavering faith and issuing a decree that anyone who spoke against their God would be executed. Despite this recognition, Nebuchadnezzar still failed to fully repent, leading to further divine intervention in his life. In 604 BC, during the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, he experienced troubling dreams, marking his first divine encounter. In desperation, Nebuchadnezzar summoned his wise men, magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, and Chaldeans to reveal both the dream and its interpretation, threatening severe punishment if they failed, dismemberment, and the destruction of their homes. This brutal ultimatum reflected Nebuchadnezzar's known harsh. Despite their skills in communicating with gods, the wise men admitted their inability to fulfill the king's request, understanding that only divine beings could meet such demands. Infuriated, Nebuchadnezzar ordered the execution of all the wise men in Babylon, Daniel and his companions. However, Daniel, known for his discretion and wisdom, diminishing power compared to Babylon. The iron mixed with clay depicted a divided kingdom with both strengths and weaknesses. The stones symbolized God's eternal kingdom, which would ultimately prevail over all earthly empires. The second lesson, which came through another dream, was a consequence of Nebuchadnezzar's pride. In this dream, he beheld a greater tree that everybody in the world could see, and it was commanded to be chopped down but was left with its trunk. The dream was therefore an alarm to Nebuchadnezzar that he was going to fall because of his boastfulness, as was prophesied by Daniel. But he heeded not the warning and went on to pride himself in his achievements, thereby suffering mental defeat where he ate the grasses like a beast for 7 years. At the end of 7 years, Nebuchadnezzar eats the grass like an ox and acknowledges the sovereignty of God and regains his right mind. This man finally came back to his kingdom in a stronger position, but in a state of reverence, not for his developing strength, but for a mighty God. Nebuchadnezzar's story is an essential moral for all generations, and his pride is punished, while his subsequent recognition of God is rewarded. This story is a perfect example of how the Lord's correction does not resemble the process of punishment for children, but the process of rebuking the proud and raising up the lowly. The account of Nebuchadnezzar's transformation points to the need to worship God and acknowledge that he is the ruler of all things. His story concludes with a powerful message. Those who will acknowledge the Lord and consider themselves lowly will be accepted and prosper. Those that consider strength as their own and become proud will be the worst off.